All right, welcome back, Chelsea fans, to another episode of the London is Blue podcast. I, of course, am your host, Nick, joined by the one and only Ollie Glanville. And if you are aware of what happens in these contexts, that means we are talking about a Chelsea women's match review. And Ollie, we picked a hell of a good one to be on for here because we were just talking a little bit before the pod. The away win against City, the elusive away win against City, could very well be a sliding doors moment for this team as we look to a huge matchup with them again on Thursday.
For sure. Like it feels a bit like a sliding doors moment, Nick, to be honest. At halftime it felt bleak. At the end, felt pretty good. And, got my ticket for Thursday, of course. And very much looking forward to that.
Look, and this is the call out for the top of the show. If you are able to go to this match on Thursday and create as much noise as humanly possible, please do it. I wish we were there. We're flying over on Thursday into Friday morning. I wish we were going to be there in time for this one because when we booked our tickets, we didn't know when the actual dates were going to be. But if you have the opportunity to go, if you're going to be there and you have the time on Thursday night to go cheer on a incredibly deserving team to give your full support, please go buy a ticket. There's still tickets available. I would love for Stamford Bridge to just be a cauldron of atmosphere for us to put a little bit of the fear in the City team and come out victorious and move on to the next round. So that is my plea at the top of the show. Ollie, we will start this one off with a 3-word match review because heck of a game, heck of a performance in the second half. What did you have?
Yeah, I went with flick the switch, Nick, because at halftime, it felt like much of the same that we've seen for the last few weeks. Like lots of nice bits of play, but a lot of kind of disjointedness. Mm-hmm. We saw a couple of, good performances in that first half, but a lot of the team, felt a bit disjointed. And City kind of had most of that game, especially through Carolyn. And then, after the half, it felt like Sonia had said a lot of stuff in that dressing room. Hopefully good stuff that we can carry forward. Something to the extent of remember your champions, maybe with a few more expletives. But yeah, I think, when you're talking about a manager and a player like Sonia Bonpasto, she knows what it takes to win. Mm-hmm. And she knows what it takes to dig deep. So yeah, it was no surprise to me to see that kind of resulting change and the quick start we had in that second half. But yeah, like in terms of the season point of view, and especially in this run, it felt like a massive deal, especially heading into Thursday for that momentum.
Building towards Thursday is mine. I mean, the entire season comes down to Thursday for me, and obviously a hole to dig out of. We'll talk a little bit more about that in part 2 of this very podcast. But boy, this was a huge shot in the arm as we head into that critical matchup. All right, let's dive into this one because there's a lot to talk about. Of course, we were playing City. Of course, it was on Sunday, March 23rd. You're listening to this on the 24th. Of course, it was in the WSL this time, one of the 3 competitions that we were playing against this team in the better part of 13 days. It was located at the Empty Head, and Ollie sure lived up to the name there. There were tens of people from Man City there.
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of standard Man City fare, to be honest. The polar opposite to your call to action earlier in the program.
Yes, yeah, indeed. Although you could hear the Chelsea fans that were there. So good on those guys who always travel well. Scoreline 1 for Man City, Carolyn in the 32nd minute. 2 for Chelsea, Aggie Beaver-Jones in the 49th minute, Aaron Cuthbert in the 90th plus 1 minute. The lineups, look, this was a weird one. It's the 3rd match in 7 days. There have been slight adjustments, but in this one, it did feel like Sonia opted for depth. Ollie, Hannah Hampton in goal because there is no other real choice there. Ashley Lawrence gets the nod with Bronze and Bright as your center backs and Neve Charles coming in for the back line. So almost a fully switched up back line, at least positionally. Orianji Francois comes in as the lone holding 6 with Hamano and Captain kind of as the advanced 8s. Cannerid, James, and Beaver Jones make up the starting lineup. Subs, Aaron Cuthbert in for Hamano in the 55th minute, Walsh in for Orangey Francois in the 63rd minute, Myra in for Aggie in the 63rd minute, Mac and Mia Fischel, Big Fish back in the 87th minute. Huge, yes, let's all do the fish momentum there. Spencer, Bjorn, Nuskin, and Baltimore unused subs. And boy, oh boy, we're going to dive into the first and second half stats, but the cumulative stats here, Ollie. Chelsea 28 shots to City's 11. 8 shots on target. Feels like it should have been more than that, even to City's 4. 56% possession, more passes, better pass accuracy, more corners. Basically, everything looking rosy on that front. 7 big chances to City's 1. To say that this was a half and half domination would be hiding it a little bit. Little shout out from our friend Rob, who I think does correctly call out the City were robbed of a second goal in the first half. They absolutely were, through some horrific refereeing. I think we can all be honest about this. He said, yes, the disallowed goal was a nonsense decision, but if you showed someone who didn't watch the match these stats in isolation and asked, did Chelsea deserve to win, you only get one answer. And I think that's kind of the point when you look at the stats, Ollie. Like, sometimes they don't tell the full story. Sometimes they do pretty much tell the full story. This is a bit of a weird one because it could have very well been a draw. It could have been a 5-1 Chelsea win. It's kind of strange.
For sure. And I think at times in the first half, it felt like we weren't, like, half of our team wasn't playing and it was all City. And at times in the second half, it felt like Kiara Keating was City's only player. Like, I mean, that's just the nature of how the game was. But I think in terms of dominance, City massively relied on one outlet in that first half in terms of Carolyn, and it worked very well for them. And thankfully, we made that tactical change in the second half, and it became more of a wave of royal blue than sky blue. But yeah, I think we'll come on to how this affects going forward and viewing the other games we played against City. But just to call out the variation, right? Like, today we had slightly more possession. It was very even. Probably predominantly the second half took that possession stat up. In other games we've had less possession. Yeah, absolutely. And then, in games we've had more possession and not done as well. But yeah, I think chance creation today was a huge plus, even though I think some of them absolutely should have gone in, and Keating maybe shouldn't have had so many chances. And yeah, to call out those 8 shots on target do not include Yo-Yo hitting the post as well, which doesn't go down as a shot on target, but was absolutely a big chance there.
One random stat, we get a couple here just for fun. Harry Edwards with that. It was just Chelsea women's second ever away win over Man City. Just not a ton of success up there, but this was a great time to get that second one. And then another one from the Barclays Women's Super League. This is 17 matches now unbeaten. They keep using the same graphic, just marking off the previous numbers, which I think is a lot of fun. Bone Pastor comes out, and we'll talk. She has a ton of quotes in this one. We'll talk kind of by half here in a second. But she comes out and says, it's always important to react after losing a game. Sometimes you think because we were Chelsea, it's easy to do that, but it's never easy for the players. Coming and having to play City away again, it's a really good result for us and for the players. Showing this reaction was the best thing that we could have done. It was a champion's performance. As I said, it's 3 really important points in the run for the title. We have 15 points left until the end, and we are 8 points ahead. It's a big advantage, but in football, you never know what can happen. No one will give us the title easily. We need to fight till the end, and we are ready for that. It was a reaction. It was certainly a reaction. We will talk a little bit in the next section about the tale of two halves and what this means before diving in to a look ahead for Thursday, because as much as this was a great result, Thursday is the real thing. So let's take a quick ad break before we dive in. Thanks to the sponsors, and we'll be right back. All right, Ollie. Tale of two halves here. we mentioned it, but I think we should actually stick on the first half for a second. Sonia comes out again in the post-match presser and says, I'm really pleased with the result. It was 3 really important points for us, right? We started well in the first 15 minutes. after that, we were not consistent enough. But I reminded my players at halftime what the game plan was. I wanted them to be able to execute the game plan. I also told them I wanted to see more belief going into the second half. Um, this was a look, it was kind of bleak in the first half. I'm not going to lie. You mentioned it looked like half of Chelsea's team wasn't playing or wasn't ready to play. Carolyn got isolated on Millie Bright many, many times. And just from a speed perspective, that's not a matchup that you really want. Millie's a phenomenal defender, but it's not nearly as quick as Carolyn is. Chelsea were getting easily played out of the press. It looked like kind of a half press at times, and just weren't offering anything going forward at all. You look at the stats in the first half: shots, zero shots on target, zero big chances. I mean, five shots, zero on target, zero big chances. Let me just be clear there. We were kind of nowhere. Thoughts?
Yeah, it felt like lots of competing ideas. And I think over the run of the last three games, we've seen so much variation in the tactical play, in things that have worked, things that haven't sort of worked. And it feels like it's all going to culminate on Thursday, hopefully in the best way possible for us. But I can see why Sonia's kind of picked and chosen what she's picked and chosen given the context. Unfortunately, I think some of it hasn't really worked as well. I think especially today, Lauren was seeing a lot of the ball really, really deep. And that's often a kind of warning sign for Chelsea that we're not getting our most dangerous players in the most dangerous areas. And that often translates to struggling to chance create. And that's essentially what happened in the first half. And we did that to try and deal with Carolyn. Like LJ was tracking back to try and deal with Carolyn, but then when she was also going forward and being more fluid, it meant Neve was isolated against Carolyn. And then when Neve was pushing forward, it meant Carolyn was isolated against Millie. It wasn't really an incredible tactical game plan from City. We didn't actually press them at all. And I think it's very revealing that Sonia said quite heavy words that she reminded them of the game plan at halftime. I think we can all read into that what we think. But Erin said it after the game as well, that we just didn't have a press. And you cannot do that against City. Like, they have players, regardless of injury, that can hit you and, are very, very dangerous, especially if you give them loads of space to run into. And I think it was so obvious from the whistle at the second half that we were into them. We had so much more intensity. We didn't let Carolyn turn. We didn't let her run into space. Like, such basic things, but they weren't happening in the first half. And I think there were too many competing ideas. And I think that kind of was to our detriment, basically.
It's always difficult because the amount of change that had to happen in this game to keep players fresh for Thursday after two really high intensity games over the last week, you're going to have some miscommunications. You're going to have players who, have seen this City team twice in a row and some who haven't. And they are an intense team. They're a well-drilled team. They play a very specific style. We know exactly how they're going to play. They know exactly how we want to play. It becomes a lot more of a mental game, in that respect. But they were also taking it to us physically. And, there was always, when Aggie would make a run through the middle, or you'd get, JRK on the outside, there was always someone there ready to confront them. There was no easy ways forward. And partly because we were sat back so much, we didn't have the ability to win the ball up in higher places and turn them over quickly and make those advanced passes. And the physicality in the first half was one-sided. It was completely, utterly one-sided. The fact that Millie in that moment is backtracking to allow Carolyn to just kind of have the ball without any real pressure in front of her, and is able to just hit a pass into the side net of the net. You're like, ugh, this is not good. This is not the way that certainly that Sonia wants to play, and I would imagine many of the players in the field want to play or feel. And again, you look at the stats and they tell a pretty compelling story half to half, because Chelsea, the first half, just not remotely close physically, not remotely close from a passing perspective in any real way. And there was that switch from the first game in the League Cup where Chelsea allowed City to have a lot of the possession, right? We're fine playing on the counter. Myra gets the early goal. You know, you kind of are comfortable knowing that they want to play in the very pass heavy press system that they play. Then, for whatever reason, we switched it up in the midweek, and then we kind of hybrided it here a little bit. This first half, I think, left a lot to be desired, and I would imagine that as much as Sonia is not a like paint peeling off the wall, screaming sort of manager, that's not her personality at all. I would imagine there were some choice words from Millie, from Aaron, from those who are paint peeling off the wall loud types to drive the point home that first of all, this Chelsea team, I believe, is firmly better than the City team. Second of all, this team is built on a foundation of physicality and mentality and being able to come back from difficult deficits to win things. Like, this is not a new thing for this team. They don't have to reach down that deep to find it. and third, there were some serious adjustments that were made because in the second half, 23 shots in the second half in 45-ish minutes of football, 7 big chances. Hampton only had to make 1 save in the entire second half. We had 9 corners. We had 240. We had almost 80 more passes than they did. Tackles about even. Free kicks about even. What the hell happened here, man? Because Sonia says maybe in the second half something was different because I was able to bring some fresh legs into the game. The quality of players who came on made an impact. This is what you expect when your players have this talent, this quality, and this experience. But it's not just fresh legs.
No, for sure. I think the players who started the game looked a yard or two quicker as well. Like, you were seeing Neve taking on their fullback. You were seeing Yo-Yo. Remember, she has pace, like she did at times in the first half, but not enough. Like, she completely burned the fullback a couple of times, and we didn't really take advantage of it. But yeah, I think just not overthinking it. Really, I mean, we're a team who are very happy to play it a bit longer. We have good passers in our team. We've got the likes of LJ. We have Kira Walsh. You got Erin, Millie out the back, Hannah out the back, right? Like, we can utilize these assets better. And I think playing out from the back definitely has its merits against maybe teams who you want to draw towards you, but the likes of City, who are very comfortable to operate, in a mid block or maybe even a low block, as Nick Cushing has suggested they might play on Thursday, have to be willing to switch it up, man. And there are players on this team, especially the likes of Myra, even a Catmac or even Mia Fisher off the bench, who can mix it with their centre backs. And they are a very young group of defenders. Like, with all the players they have out, they made mistakes today, especially for Aggie's goal, when the centre backs turns their back on Yo-Yo, and that kind of led to that easy pass back to Aggie, and she does really well from that. But we need to go at their weaknesses. Like, this team is not the strongest City team, and it's credit to Nick Cushing that he's utilised Carolyn in this fast break role with Miedemar, as a third person run, running into the box. But these are not hard tactics to stop. They've been around for a very long time, and to stop pace, you have to stop it at source. And it was very revealing that in the first kind of 20 seconds of the second half, Neve was right up on Carolyn on the halfway line. There was no ball over her head. She was grappling with her from the first whistle of the second half. And I think it just shows that kind of rise in intensity is very hard to deal with. Yes, we did have great options off the bench as well, and that can't be discounted. You bring Myra on, you bring Catmac on, you bring Mia on, and they all have the unique skill set to be able to provide and mess up that City backline and really create chances from there. And really, I think that puts us in a great space for Thursday. Some of the chance creation was some of the best football we've played in weeks. Like we were talking about it.
This is what I want to talk about, though, Ollie, because I think we have been watching this team for a long time. We've obviously noted that over the last couple of months, the intensity of attack, the finishing, the chance creation has obviously kind of gone in the opposite direction of where we want it to go if we're going to win big things, right? This second half was, first of all, it kind of came out of nowhere. It was team was kind of down, not playing that well, and then they come out hair on fire. Direct, tons of risks being taken, a ton of great passing. Like Aggie Beaver Jones, I think absolutely fantastic, just given the amount of football she's played this year. I mean, I always go back to our kind of preseason preview, thinking about like, oh, she's gonna have a pretty good role this year. It's like, I think she's basically a starter now. I mean, she's playing almost every game, and that's with some really important attacking options there. Like, what the hell happened here? Because obviously, this is the best half of football we played, I think, since Christmas break.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of it is also down to confidence, right? I think a lot of it is just a mental switch. And, going back to my 3-word match review in terms of flick the switch, I think it's as much mental as physical. Like we talked about the intensity, but there was confidence, man. Like they were playing with confidence. And a lot of the younger players who really have helped us off the bench, or in Aggie's case, like from a starting role, being one of the kind of first names on the team sheet, they're playing with a confidence that belies their youth. I think in the first half, you saw that so much of what we've seen in especially the last 4 or 5 weeks, where we feel like we've just been coasting, was evident, right? And I think it was a big hit midweek to lose that game, especially in the manner we did it. It felt a bit like, City just kind of had us where they wanted us, and just kind of picked us off. So today, the manner in which we overcame it and kind of bullied them second half in a way that only a Chelsea side can in the WSL, I feel like is a real sliding doors moment. But also, I think, that one-touch interplay that we've been missing and was so sloppy in the first half, right? It
Totally.
just came back. It was almost instant after the second half whistle.
It was such a night and day performance, especially offensively. I mean, 7 big chances against a City team that, look, they've given up some goals this year, but they're a pretty tough bit of opposition to get clear chances against. They do a pretty good job in that regard. I was just like, I was mesmerized by what I was watching, because you look at a JRK. Let's just isolate JRK for a second. First half looked completely lost, was not even close to being at the pace at which we know she can play. Missed touches, missed passes, nowhere, right? Lauren is being forced to track Carolyn back and doing 90-yard sprints the entire half, nowhere to be found offensively because she couldn't be. And then Micah Amano, a player who I really love, didn't really get into the game as much as maybe we had hoped, right? And we went away from her like man-to-man marking Hasagawa too, which I just don't understand. So it's like just nothing working, and then everything working. Then Myra comes in and starts making those passes, the runs in behind, the passes there for her to do something with. Right, JRK starts playing out of her skull. Ashley Lawrence starts to contribute a hell of a lot more offensively out of nowhere. And partly because I think we were winning the ball up in higher areas where we could commit more people forward without feeling like we were completely at risk. That was the other part of the offensive display, is the defense was immaculate in the second half. I mean, they made every challenge, they tracked every run. It was like the level just raised 10 notches out of nowhere, and it's by far the best we've looked in a while. So I mean, this is this is like a big deal, because What we're going to talk about next is like what this means for Thursday. But I did just want to shout out LJ right now, really quick.
Yeah.
The amount of work that LJ did today. I think if you would have shown us this LJ performance 2 years ago, we wouldn't have believed you because all she did was everything. And she played fullback at times. She was in midfield helping out at times. She didn't have to have the ball to be effective. It's a sort of unselfish play that I think we know that she has, but has really come out over the last 3 months. It's incredible stuff to watch. I think everyone on that we respect called out the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, in order to become the kind of complete world dominating player that we know she can be, that side of her game has always been like the one little thing you wanted to tick off. And yeah, like some of the slide challenges she was making today, you're just like, this is great. This is like it's like everything you want from an LJ performance. The kind of when she's running past 3 or 4 players and just throwing them off her when they're desperately trying to foul her and somehow the referee isn't calling any of it. That sort of stuff is great to watch. And she's playing with a swagger again that is so much what you identify with LJ. And it feels like it's all going to culminate in like a really big moment for her. Maybe not Thursday, but maybe further down the line. And I just, yeah, I want to be there to see it, man, because she's what you pay the ticket prices for, because she's just so exciting to watch and such a dominant player when she's on form like this. So I just hope we utilize her in a position where she can really, put that danger up a notch.
Yeah, I think in a team where you're missing Gro Wrighton, who fills the clinicality role in terms of finishing, and a team where Sam Kerr isn't available quite yet. We'll touch on the injuries here in a second. God, I'd love to see her a little bit further forward and not doing as much work defensively. I think that would be something to be interested in. But I mean, the fact that she's doing it, the fact that there are so many great athletes in this team, and she was doing some of this work. I mean, she boat raced Carolyn a couple of times in this game where it was like clear pace difference, and I was like, oh, like that is not easy to do. Carolyn is quick, like real quick. I burned Neve Charles a couple times, and Neve is no slouch. Like that is a real athlete, and I was just like, wow, like LJ just smoked her. That sort of thing. If she's healthy and she's fully into the swagger of what she can do, oh man, Thursday could be a show. It could be a show. But we're going to take our last ad break really quick, talk about Thursday, because it's all that I can think about right now. And for more reasons than one. So we'll take our final ad break. Thanks to the sponsors, and we'll be right back. All right, Ollie, moments here. We cannot ignore it any longer. As you know, we'll be aware if you listen to the show or watched our YouTube channel. Chelsea have a hell of a lot of work to do here on Thursday to get back into the Champions League tie. Obviously lost 2-0 away to City in the midweek. It was not a very good performance. It was sloppy at times, and it did end up costing us. In a 2-leg format, the 2-0 first leg is oftentimes a really tough one to come back from, right? So just honesty straight up on the table here to start. But this is now the third match. This league match was the third match in 3 days. Chelsea win the League Cup 2-1, have less shots on target, but kind of scrape it across the line in the end. Pretty decent performance, outside of a chunk there, but not anything that will blow your mind. The 2-0 performance against City have more possession than we had in the League Cup final. 10 shots to their 15, 6 shots to their 8, relatively even in that regard. Unlucky on, JRK hitting the woodwork, and instead of leveling it at 1, then you give up a really cheap second, right? Today's match, blow them out in every single statistical category. after a very poor half. Not a complete performance, but a dominant performance in the end. And somewhere in the middle of the possession between the League Cup final and the Champions League final, or the Champions League quarterfinal. Where do you start there? Because it's very different games, 3 different games. And I was trying to, like, as I was setting up the script together, like there is it's different to read out for each one. Personnel is a little bit different. We can touch on the personnel here in a second, but how do you read these 3 results so far in the context of what Thursday has to be, which is 3 goals to advance?
Yeah, I think it's a really tough one. Like we called out before this run how Sonia was going to play this, right? And it was all about use of the squad, that kind of give and take around playing the same team over a couple of weeks, what she would prioritize, what she would have to compromise, that kind of stuff. And that's basically what's happened right over these 3 games is you can kind of see what she's wanted to save for like real prime time. And I feel like Thursday is the game that they've been preparing for like 4 weeks. I feel like the away game was almost like just take back what you can, that don't lose it over there essentially, and try and nick a result, which is very unlike us, especially in the Champions League. Before we play Barcelona, we always go to try and be on the front foot, but it felt like we were kind of misaligned there. But yeah, today, especially in the second half, I think we saw probably the team that's going to start on Thursday with a couple of extras added in. I think the Micah Erin one is really interesting. I think Nuskin as well is a really interesting choice. But I think we'll see the culmination of all these 3 games put together. I think the first game... Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to quickly say, because you brought up the midfield, 3 different midfield configurations over 3 games. First game, Aaron Cuthbert, Nuskin. Second game, Kira Walsh, Aaron Cuthbert. Third game, the midfield 3, Aurélien Jean-Francois, Vika Kaptein, and Micah Amano, right? 3 different setups. It feels to me like the attacking 8s gave us a little bit more in both categories than the pivot did necessarily, to me. And if you're looking at like a key area where I think we, until the second half today, really have struggled to get into the game through midfield and kind of seeded the midfield to play on the wings, that would be an interesting one. So I'm taking your note and putting it into what I've seen so far.
Yeah, I think, and just to take an example, right? The Kaptein today started off in that 8 role, like that more attacking 8 role with Ori behind, who actually I thought Jean-Francois was quite bright. I know she was giving the ball away, but she was kind of alone and isolated. And it felt like Micah and Vika were the ones who kind of were played out of position almost and didn't really know their role a bit. So that was quite interesting. But then the way we finished the game, Vika was like one of our furthest players forward. She could have scored 3. She maybe should have scored at least 2. But that Definitely. Kind of... Yeah, that kind of interplay, like especially with Yo-Yo down that side and Ash, who we'll come on to, I think it was just such a subtle tweak in terms of allowing the pivot to be a bit more fluid, but still remaining a kind of 2 with Kira and Erin. But it gave us much more of a stable base. And Erin touched on it after the game, actually. She said that basically Sonia sees her as a box-to-box and that she feels like she's a box-to-box. So kind of play me as one, right? So this kind of, having Kira or Ori or whoever as the single pivot doesn't really make much sense. I think we need to have much more fluidity in terms of having a 2 there, just being able to be more stable, because it's so easy to play through that midfield if we don't press. If we do press, it's really, really hard. But too much this season, we found it quite hard to get that press lined up. And it felt like we definitely aligned with those couple of changes in the second half.
It's the stress point that you choose, right?
Yep.
In the two, obviously, the stress point is if one of your two gets out of position, you got a lone ranger back there who, if you're Kira Walsh, is maybe not as athletic as someone like Jean Francois, who is, a young player and kind of entering that perfect stage of athleticism in their career. If you play the lone back there, your eights really are the stress point. And if they don't get back, if they don't help out in both areas, one, you lose attacking impetus, and two, you lose defensive impetus. And so you kind of get lost in no man's land, which I think for the first half was really what that made, kind of the business end look like. This to me is the most critical decision outside of like who you play from a personnel standpoint. I have a feeling that Kira Walsh will start on Thursday. I think just the experience and the passing, it's hard to imagine that you bring her in for such a fee and then don't play her in the most important game of the season. Just the way shit works. I don't make up the rules. But I think it will be interesting to see the positioning of the other one or two midfielders. Do you play with a 10, a recognized 10 like Cat Mac? Or do Aaron and Chukanuskin start tearing shit up as chaos eights? Because I think there is depending, we'll talk a little bit about injuries here in a second, how that might impact things, but like there's a real decision there to be had.
For sure.
Do you play the high intensity game that we just saw, which I hope to God we do, because that was a hell of a lot more fun to watch than the other stuff that we've seen? Or do you think about what they're going to do and try and counter that before? I would hope that the home game, the momentum, the good vibes in the stadium would spur on an incredibly aggressive game plan. And if you're going to play an incredibly aggressive game plan, it's a tough call. It's a tough call because they all bring different attributes to the table to potentially help make things work. But I just want to quickly touch on the injury issues really quick, because both teams heading into this one are not fully healthy. We are better off than City by far. Sam Kerr was ruled out until after the international break. You and I had both kind of hoped maybe there was a Jordan flu game situation here and for the final home game there. But it's just too early for her. Probably maybe we see her kind of late April if it feels like they're taking their time.
Yeah, like let's make sure she has a moment in the Champions League, right? That's another thing about what Thursday's about.
No, it's absolutely true. Keir Walsh is just coming back, right? Was out, now back. Again, feels like there's a lot of like sustaining injuries around right now where like someone can play and then maybe they don't play. Gurma's still out. I think there's, Natalie Bjorn didn't play in today's game. I would imagine that she's back and ready to roll. Lucy Bronze is playing a hell of a lot of football this season. And I think that's just something to watch out for. That the Lawrence appearance today was really, really important. Definitely. To know that you can make some critical substitutions when you need to. Neve Charles didn't have a great game, but I think in the context of just getting back into it after a little bit of a layoff, back and looking good.
Yeah.
And look, this is going to be a weird one because City, are they kind of on their last leg from an injury standpoint? Just from last Wednesday's game, Keisha Shaw and Fujino are likely out for significant periods of time, if not through the end of the year. In this game, Blankilda and even Hasegawa got injured, which are two critical players in a team that don't have a ton of midfield options. And then the one that we were talking about before the show, Yamashita, who was excellent in the midweek and really has been excellent for them this season. Was a great addition. If she's out for Thursday, that might be the biggest injury miss of all.
For sure. I think especially on the set pieces. I know Kiara Keating got player of the match today, but frankly, she shouldn't have had a chance on some of those chances.
No.
Like especially one where Vika tried to put it back across her when, 3/4 of the goal was to aim at, it might have been a tougher chance, to be fair. But yeah, I think I'd be much more comfortable with Chiara Keating in goal, just knowing how she struggles with crosses, especially for set pieces, because at the bridge with a crowd behind us, I think we will start very fast. I mean, Nick Cushing even basically said that he thinks a lot of the game on Thursday will look like the second half. And I hope he's right, Nick, because that means we have 8 chances a half. We'll go with that.
Yep.
But yeah, I think, just going back to your point, I think I want to touch on the fullbacks definitely, because Neve and Ash today, I think, were really big pluses in that second half. I think we saw some of the tentativeness that we've had this season in both their performances in the first half. But I think in the second half, Neve stuck with Carolyn much better. And Ash really put in a performance down that right-hand side, not, assisting the winner, especially with that really cute pause to put the defender on the floor, and then the pinpoint pass to pick out Erin on that run. But that kind of stuff, stepping up in that way, especially with Lucy Bronze having to deputise at centre-back, is massive for us, because we're going to need the whole squad to step up in every moment if we're going to win everything this season, especially in the Champions League, right? I think, yeah, especially in that second half, the fullbacks were excellent. But yeah, also, we touched on Mia earlier as well, but it was great to see her come back. And she did have that great cameo role of pacing down the wing and causing issues. And she was another kind of chaos agent to bring on that, we may not have Sam Kerr, but look, Mia, if she comes on and we need a goal, she will have her probably time to shine with an aerial challenge. And look, she's great in the air. So let's see what happens on Thursday, Nick.
Well, you were talking about, Keating maybe not being phenomenal on, set piece crosses, whatever, a little tentative. What a weapon to have if that is the sort of goal that you want to score, and you can get 20 minutes out of Mia Fischel at the end of this game to score your 5th or 6th goal and just really put it away for good. But yeah, I mean, Mia coming back. I mean, I also think about kind of we get the second goal and then there's 5 more minutes of stoppage time, right? So trying to kill the game off, whatever. The fact that you're able to have Myra on one side and Mia on the other, who are able to take the ball into the corner and then not be moved at all, that's just a luxury. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, it's size and strength and all that, but it's also just footwork and being able to work a corner, and
awareness.
It's just not something you see in football that much anymore. There's the awareness, the understanding of your positioning versus what they're trying to do to get the ball, and the way you're able to position your body. I value that so much in shithouse moments when you need it, and I really do. I don't hope we need to do that. I hope it's a very comfortable sort of day out. But if you need it, you can certainly get it.
It's a great weapon to have. We touched on it before about, maybe I forget who we were talking about in terms of their time wasting, but it is a weapon you can use. If we do go 3 goals clear on Thursday, I would not mind at all if in the last 10 minutes we throw on Mia to play that role in the corner, or to make sure we hold up that ball, because possession is absolutely crucial to hold on to that lead. But yeah, I think it's just great to see her back from a personal perspective as well, because seeing that double injury, her coming off one and then getting another one so soon after having big moments like scoring her first goal at Stamford Bridge against Spurs and things like that was tough to see. And it's great for her to come back into such a big win and be a little part of it and have that cameo to herself. But I also want to say that, Aggie is really, really proving herself week in, week out to be a real crucial player for us. And you speak to the quality of that equalizing goal, having that body awareness and the spatial awareness to take that first touch to make sure she finds that corner beyond Keating. It's just great to watch. And she's shown some kind of tentativeness in the last few weeks in terms of that finishing side of her game. But when she plays with confidence, she is so hard to deal with. She's such a multi-threat there. And as you said with Yo-Yo, when she realizes she can use that pace and not just chop inside every time and just burn the fullback around them, like, go for it, Yo-Yo. Like, do your thing, because it's tough to stop.
So to sit, I guess to sum up the things that we want to carry over: direct attacking, balls into the box, players committed to being in the box. Obviously, the finishing needs to be better. Finishing quality needs to improve dramatically. We need one of those days where everything we hit goes into the net, and the team is extra focused on that final third finishing. We need the team to commit physically to stopping. I think your point about stopping Carolina at the source. There's a reason why in the NFL you don't give Jamar Chase a 40-yard run at you. You stop him at the line. Like that's essentially the tactic you need. What do we need to be rid of? What are some bad things that have cropped up, Ollie, that you're like, man, if we cut 2 or 3 of these things out, we're going to have a really good chance?
I think the lack of intensity, I think, the opposite to what you're saying in terms of just stepping off and not kind of confronting City in the way that we know we need to in those times. Like the first goal, Carolyn is dangerous and is fast, but we didn't really challenge her to make a decision until she wanted to. Neve and Millie are backing off 40, 50 yards, and it's because they don't want to be taken for pace. But if you show Carolyn wide, she is more likely to miss. Like, statistically, just in reality, she's more likely to miss. So I just want to see a bit more of that kind of front foot confrontation. And that's what we saw in the second half. And also what Myra was so good at in that League Cup win was just bullying. Like, we need to be a team that uses our physicality. I know you value that just as much as me in terms of seeing a player bully their opposite number and showing that physical dominance. But it's not all about technique. If you can steal a yard and use your body in the right way, and not foul the opposition, you get that advantage. And 2-3 yards in a game that's 90 minutes is going to give you big chances, especially against, if City are going to sit back, we need to use everything in our textbook and maybe rip it up to to make sure we get over that line. So yeah, I think just having players like Erin in terms of the leadership as well is going to be absolutely crucial. I think in certain games this season we've looked quite rudderless, and even in the first half today, it felt like we've kind of meandered through the game and it's kind of happened while we've been on the pitch. I think we need to determine our own destiny, and we did that in the second half today, and that needs to continue on Thursday.
Well, let's think about our lineups here, and I'll go first to give you a time to think through what you want to see. I think we've had some good conversation about what has changed game to game and what has worked, what hasn't worked. I am of the perception that you need to have the midfield as like a critical focus for this one. And so I am going to throw numbers at that to help solve the problem. So I'm going 4-3-3 as my formation. I'm actually sticking with the same back line. I think we need the speed. I think we need Lawrence. I think we need Neve Charles. I think Bronze and Bright played well enough together today to get away with it. They're both experienced, really good defenders. It's harsh on Bjorn, but I liked what I saw today more than any of the previous iterations. So I'm happy with that. If Bjorn starts, whatever, it's all good. We have plenty of great options there, but I like the speed and the fact that we had some cover. Some people might be against that. I'm fine with it. Kira Walsh, Aaron Cuthbert, Shuka Nuskin in midfield. Nuskin and kind of providing the mid cover for Walsh. Aaron Cuthbert getting far forward. One thing we have not yet talked about is the excellent fucking finish at the end from Aaron Cuthbert. Stooping header, unbelievable. She's a big player in a big moment, and without a Sam Kerr, you need Girl Wrighton, these types of players. You need her. And I want to get her further forward to cause chaos in this one than sitting back and making tackles. I think she's far more valuable up there. LJ, Aggie, JRK, front three. I think Aggie is more than deserving of this start. and I think she will be on fire heading into Thursday at Stamford Bridge. I'm going chaos. I'm going speed, and I want to see that midfield control more of the game than they have in the previous 3 iterations of this. Over to you, sir.
No, I love I love our Chaos 10 in terms of Shukaniskin. I think it's tough on Vika Kaptein, but I think having her off the bench especially will be such a big deal as well, and Micah as well in terms of that energy she can buzz in. I think the only thing at the back I would say is bronze definitely gives you an extra attacking option out the back as well, which is something that's really great. And she's definitely great for attacking set pieces as well. I do wonder if we see Ash go left back and Lucy right back on Thursday. Just to see how Ash deals with that kind of Carolyn threat if she's put in behind as well, because I do expect they'll play quite counter-attack. And the speed endurance of Ash is probably better than Neve right now as she's coming back to full fitness. And frankly, Ash, after today, has deserved that. And we touched on it, a few weeks ago about how Ash strikes me as a player who needs that love. And starting her in a big game like this shows that. It's just, written there on the paper. And in the front line, I would just say that I think there's going to be a really interesting decision between Yo-Yo and Myra. Because I wonder, Aggie and LJ are going to be those first 2 names. And then I wonder if Myra or Yo-Yo miss out. But yeah, interesting one, Nick. You were going to say?
Yeah. No, I'm curious about that, because what I liked about the front 3, 4, whatever you want to call it today, is like there was some really good interchange. And I think to your earlier point, another combination could be Sandy Baltimore pushing LJ inside to get more shots on target, where an excellent finisher of her nature would be really beneficial to have in a game where you need at least 3 goals. So I think there could be another one too. I mean, Sandy's done nothing wrong here. She's just not a pure left back. I think for the setup and what you need out of this game, unless you just go hyper aggressive, which hasn't really been Sonia's kind of go-to so far. I think it is a more traditional back 4, but Sandy is a excellent dribbler. She's an excellent creator. She would be really, really difficult for their ailing fullbacks to deal with. And if that means that LJ is a second striker or someone who's able to kind of move around at will doing what she does, I'm interested in that as a potential solution too. But I do think Myra misses out the start on this one, and I think it's just a form thing. I think Aggie is more than deserved this moment, and again, one of the great parts of this season is that Aggie Beaver-Jones went from like, oh wow, she's really, really good, to like, oh wow, we really, really need her. There's a huge goal. Well, and the finish was excellent and all this stuff, but I want to see Cuthbert in forward areas. I want to see LJ hopefully get some shots on target here. And 3 goals, man. We need 3 goals. Do we get the 3 goals in your prediction, Ollie Glanville? I'm going to guess you're going to say yes.
Yeah, funny that. Yeah, no, absolutely 100%, Nick, because I think in the second half today, we proved that if we play anything like our best football, City just can't deal with us. There's nothing in this City team that can stop us creating those chances, and it's purely down to our finishing. And yes, you could argue in the last few games, especially, that we've been quite errant in that. But we had a lot of shots on target today. We've been missing the target a lot from very, very presentable chances. And I think, scoping in with these more shots on target, if we just convert 1 or 2 more of those to goals that were very presentable, I think off the back of the wave that will be carried at Stamford Bridge, and especially if we can get that early goal, I think City are going to find it very, very difficult. I think the only real massive issue we have to worry about is Carolyn on the break. She's not the most efficient goal scorer. Like, this is her first WSL goal. She's had loads and loads of chances to score at City so far. we just need to shut down that option. And that's why I think it's so crucial to see what happens down that left-hand side. But yeah, I'm just really excited for it, Nick. I have to say, like, after maybe the halftime whistle today, you were kind of down on it. But yeah, come at the end, the scenes in that away end, Aaron Cuthbert doing Aaron Cuthbert things, and kissing that badge and everyone roaring to the away fans. I think they're in the mood for Thursday, and I can really see us starting that game with a lot of intensity. I don't think Sonia will have to rip paint off the walls before that game. I think it will all happen naturally.
Yeah, I think it will come from Millie, from Lucy, from Aaron. Like, I don't know if Sonia will have to give a pre-match team talk at all. Frankly, I think this one might be a little bit more on the players. So, yeah, I think, again, hard thing to do, overturn a 2-goal deficit in a second leg. It's not done that frequently. I think all the stats that have come out about overcoming a 2-0 deficit are there for a reason. City are still a good team. They still play a very good style of football. I think we just get it done. I think it is a 4-1 sort of game for Chelsea. The finishing comes good, where it hasn't for quite some time, and it's going to be driven by Aaron Cuthbert. I do think Aaron Cuthbert will get another goal in this game, and it will lift everyone around her to do more, to do better. She's made for these moments. She's absolutely made for them. She does not shirk away from difficult circumstances or situations. She is just made of steel. So there is a real chance that I think we get an early goal or two and then finish the job in the second half. And man, hopefully don't have to go through a Lyon situation from a couple of years ago. That would be ideal. But yeah, if they play the way that they played in the second half, if they played with the conviction and the class and the confidence, then they will win. I have a very good suspicion of that.
Yeah, for sure. I think the parallel I draw is remember being in the stadium when we were down to Napoli, the men's team, and it was all down to when we scored that first goal, and Drogba puts it in, and the whole crowd just explodes, and everything lifts. The whole team lifts. Everyone's like dialed in. They know what they need to do. I mean, yeah, the Lyon result, I don't care if it goes to penalties as long as we win, but obviously I want it done in normal time. But yeah, I think this has the potential to be another real defining moment in the relatively early like season of Sonia, her first term. Like, if we can get over the line here, like, you become a rolling stone. Like, it becomes like momentum is kicking on, and then we're talking about running Chelsea again and how we can dial it in. And yeah, I think just be there on Thursday, man. Like, if you can get a ticket, they're still available. Like, if you can get there, I think we have the potential for something really special to happen.
And there's a pre-match at the Cock Tavern, which is one of my favorite haunts. So if you're a little bit nervous and want some liquid courage, that will be available to you as well. But just looking at the table and the importance of this game, because I think we're focused on Thursday, everyone's focused on Thursday, but the league is still up for grabs, hypothetically. Chelsea now 17 matches played, 15 wins, 2 draws, 0 losses, 47 goals scored, 11 against, a plus 36 goal diff, 47 points. Arsenal in second. They have made a little bit of a climb since we last spoke. They are on 39 points, so still 8 behind on a 32 goal difference. So they've really kind of put some goals on the board since making the change of manager. Manchester United 39 points, only a 25 goal diff. So hard to see them kind of making up if results hold that second place. City now on 32 points. This would have been a big win for them in their quest to chase down United on a 16 goal diff. Brighton, Liverpool, Everton, West Ham, Tottenham, Leicester, Villa, and Palace Palace now just 1 point behind Villa.
It's close.
Scary times for old Villa there. But yeah, this is the table. It's a big win. Chelsea are still 8 points up in the table, and again, 15 points left. You feel relatively confident in their ability to close the deal. Obviously, sooner rather than later. Get Thursday done. Win when we are there on Sunday, for the love of God, against West Ham, and let's see where this goes. But yeah, all eyes on Thursday. And Ollie, I will be there with you in spirit, and then I will be at Kings Meadow in physical fashion on Sunday the 30th. And that's where we're going to round this one out. Thanks for joining. And until next time, Chelsea fans, you know what to do. Keep the blue flag flying high.